Breaking the News Plus is going to dive into the wide world of sports yet again because we got to talk about the best player on the Minnesota Lynx, Napheesa Collier. And to do that with me is Cassidy Hedesheimer. She is the women's sports reporter at the Star Tribune, covers the Lynx each and every day. Hey, Cassidy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Yeah, busy time to be a women's sports reporter in the Twin Cities, but it's a good time to dive in.
Absolutely. We know you got to get to the ice with the frost before you go. There has been a lot of talk about Napheesa Collier's one-year contract extension. And in the last 48 hours, it's gotten a little more traction because she gave a national interview and then Coach Reeve talked about it today. What do you make of Phee only signing for 1 year?
Yeah, I mean, Phee has been consistent in sort of her messaging ever since she re-signed and had that initial press conference a couple weeks ago alongside Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride, just saying that so much is sort of going on right now, to paraphrase, but so much is sort of going on right now in recovering from her injury. You know, she's never had surgeries this way that she's had on her ankle surgeries this offseason. And so she wants to focus on, getting back and getting onto the court before kind of thinking about the long-term future. And sort of reiterated the same thing in that national interview with NPR. I think that the idea is, that gives her a lot of flexibility, right? Next year, depending on, what this Lynx team ends up looking like, how the offseason goes. We got to catch up with Coach Cheryl Reeve today at Lynx Availability. And she was talking about how, next year Phee will be a free agent for the first time in her career. They cored her this year and re-signed her on that 1 year max deal. So they'll be among 15 teams that are going to want to present offers to her and kind of showcase why they could be her next, great landing spot, or to stick around here in Minnesota. But with the caliber of play that she has and the caliber of a player she is, there's certain players that can sort of carry that, that autonomy and that power to have teams kind of courting them in that way. And that'll be a new experience for her next year.
Did you get the sense from Coach Reeve that the Lynx were in a position or want to be in a position to do anything they can to keep her?
Yeah, I think that, in that conversation and I have some coverage from it and kind of break down my thoughts here between, the Frost games and then the start of the Lynx season this year that'll go up. But I think just kind of initial reactions from what, Coach Reeve was saying is that there is, the Lynx do want her around long term, and they, they view her as such a big part of their game and their identity, as she has been since 2019. Mm-hmm. But that, it would be unfair to sort of speak to beyond that right now before Phee enters into that sort of unprecedented offseason of her career and explores those options. But that, they know how valuable she is. And, that she is in a place that, she could say, hey, like 4 years Supermax, like with a team, like I want this, but she chose instead to keep that flexibility for herself as sort of a, for some players, that's just as important as the money when they know that in all likelihood, the money might be there, regardless of how many years they sign for when they have that much talent.
Right. And when we're talking about a player like Napheesa Collier, she makes money in a lot of different ways. Founder of Unrivaled with several others, a very successful off-season kind of accompaniment in some ways to the WNBA, where players get paid a lot of money to pay. She's in that. She's a Jordan brand signee, so she probably makes more from the Jordan brand signee faction than she'll ever make in the WNBA. So it can be about money, or it can be, not just about money, but about keeping options open. I think what's interesting, she's also said she wants to see how her ankles do, never had surgery before, and she had both of them worked on, and that she wants to win a championship. Now, we could see that in a couple of ways. Is that a signal that she wants more marquee players brought onto the Lynx and she takes less money? We've seen players do that to make them more competitive. Do you see that as something that could be a play?
Yeah, when in Cheryl's talking to us today as media, she mentioned that she had conversations with Phee this offseason in January around Unrivaled, and was talking sort of about how that there was so much uncertainty at the time of the idea of, every player was sort of, I think the word she used was chatter, of just like players being like, I might end up here, I might end up here, here's what I'm thinking. And so, not only are players sort of considering where they're going to end up, but also what their teams are going to look like, and how competitive they might be. And so again, it kind of goes back right to that 1 year. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but there's a world in which that, it does allow a player like Phee and maybe players that are in similar situations in other spots in the league to sort of assess, like, after all of this free agency has shook out with sort of an unprecedented amount of free agents, how competitive will my team be? And, is this the place where I best fit and where my talents can best be used? So I think that will be sort of, an interesting, thing to see with all the questions that the Lynx have, both figuring out, how to play without Phee on the court. And then when she's back, how well they gel together. If things go well, maybe that is, sort of trending in a positive direction, or what conversations they're able to have in the off season with free agents. But I think Phee said it herself in that NPR interview of, like, it's crazy to think that a year from now feels like such a long time from now. But when you think about all the things that she has to go through over the next year of rehab, finishing up her rehab and coming back and seeing how she fits with a almost completely new team, with the exception of a couple of players, there's a lot of question marks that, like, trying to postulate and predict makes it tough.
Yeah, and I think you're uniquely qualified as you're covering women's sports as a whole here in Minnesota to maybe let's take the conversation to that space. When I zoom out and I'm trying to think about it, the way that Phee is presenting it, it does sort of make sense. And it's not just that a year feels like a long time. The last 3 months have felt like a long time, or 6 months for her at the end of last year, being injured in what could have been a title run. She got so close. Then the CBA negotiated this just explosion of salaries, new rights, new exposure, players going every which way. You really don't know what the WNBA is going to look like this year. You don't know who the best teams are, per se. You don't know what everybody's going to look like. And so it's kind of mature to say, I want to see the dust settle. Nothing personal, Minnesota, but I need to get a fresh look at today's WNBA.
Yeah, I think the word, again, like, as I'm rattling off things here, but the word that I do know that Cheryl used was cautious as a way to describe Phee's approach. And I think, that's never a caution, when there's lots of money and potential championships and all these sort of, long-term impacts of where a player ends up. If a player has the power and the talent, I use power in a way of, like, sway, I guess, to be cautious, that's something that they can keep in their back pocket. And so, there is so much change, exciting change in the W right now. And it'll, keep sort of having these ripple effects that we see over the next couple of years. And
yeah, I think another thing that she noted too, and all too well, Phee this is the longest that Napheesa Collier hasn't played competitive basketball since she started playing basketball because of these injuries and then the surgeries. So she's a little bit, now I don't want to say rusty off the court, because God bless, if she took the court today, she could be the MVP. But in that sense of, she has not played with this new team yet. She doesn't know how it feels. She isn't back in that kind of grind. She said the other day she can't even shoot free throws. And so she's been kind of in this business zoomed out mode and not in a playing mode. And I wonder if that'll have any effect on her once she plays.
Right. And that was something too, kind of, when Phee has said, when asked sort of about the year and her approach to it and beyond, the idea that she's so focused on getting back up to speed. kind of asking Cheryl is, both coach and, president of basketball operations, if that sort of aligns with their team's approach to, Phee this year, especially if it could be when it is so short term, right? Of sort of like they have this year guaranteed with her. And then after that is something that then has to be renegotiated and reestablished. Cheryl pointed to 2022 when Phee was coming back from having her daughter, and how that was a pretty quick process. And of course, that's, that was Cheryl's take, and would be interested, to Phee about that timeline and if, she learned anything from that. But that there's sort of like learning things to learn from that, of like, did we feel like this was too fast, or, sort of in giving up, short-term benefit of like she's back on the court, because a player like Phee, who's at 80%, is still better than most players in the league, but then do you want to risk her being able to be at 100%? And Cheryl said that they might be the ones that are kind of having to remind Phee that her long-term health is important, and Cheryl called her the queen of FOMO, and Phee has said that she's excited to be back with her teammates and back on the court and back playing competitive basketball, right? Because these players want to win. They want to be out there. They want to be doing what they're so good at. So, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, that early June return to basketball activities is something that the team has communicated, and that Phee has communicated as their goal, which is about a month from now. So it'll be interesting to see both what that sort of means, and how quick then she feels comfortable enough to play in games.
Yeah, and we finally get to see, it feels like it's been forever because the CBA was like sweating out a breaking news deal every day. We finally get to see the Lynx in action for real, not preseason, Saturday at Target Center. Phee will be on the sidelines, but we'll get our first look at the brand new Minnesota Lynx. You think they got a good squad, Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, we don't have to look too far in the past to see a team that was underrated, right, on the Lynx, that overperformed people's expectations. That 2024 team that made a run to the finals, obviously with Phee playing, but people weren't necessarily picking them to make that run, and they did. And then last year, definitely weren't flying under the radar by any means. That was another thing too that Cheryl spoke a little bit about today, about what mode is this team in? Are they in a win now? Are they in a rebuild or reset? And they don't quite match up with these teams that have a lot of young talent and future draft picks, but then also, like, there are a lot of new faces, and there are young players with a lot of upside. Number one example, Olivia Miles.
Right.
And so I think that point being is, maybe they're a little closer to 2024 at their best, once Phee is back, once Dorka Juhas, maybe comes back from injury. But then Cheryl's also comparing it to 2023, when that was even more of a sort of a reset, and brought in some pieces that ended up being influential, saw Phee take a big jump in her play. And so that was a year where they made it to the playoffs, but obviously not quite as deep of a run. So I think it'll be about them finding an identity without Phee on the court, and then finding an identity with them after. And that'll be, a challenge, but I think that we've seen them rise up to that, even just in the couple of years that I've been here covering sports in the Twin Cities. And, they had the GM, they do an annual GM survey, and I know the Lynx coaching staff got a lot of nods there from the league GM. So they seem to have faith that there could be, these pieces could come together in that way.
Yeah, nobody's going to be a slouch on Cheryl Reeve. She does play chess, not checkers. Cassidy, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's all for Breaking the News Plus on this Thursday night. Take care.